Now, I'm saying according to Q. Again, I don't have any proof of this, but we're talking about who is Q, so I'm going to tell you what he says. According to him, many in our government are actively worshiping Satan.
That's Marjorie Taylor Greene, a far-right conspiracy theorist, a former CrossFit gym owner, and a Facebook status come to life. I'm Van Lathan, and this is the story of how House Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene went from supporting a theory claiming the government is filled with Satan-worshiping pedophiles to working alongside them.
These are interesting things to look at, and so I wanted to talk to you about them. I'm not presenting them that they're fact, but I am presenting them that I'm hoping they're facts.
Marjorie Taylor Greene was born in Milledgeville, Georgia in 1974. She attended South Forsyth High School in Cumming, Georgia in Forsyth County, a region deeply rooted in racism. Her formative years were spent in a county stolen from black people in the 1912 campaign that has been called the most successful racial cleansing in U.S. history. After a fatal rape of a white woman, allegedly by two black men in 1912, the county's hostility towards non-white residents began to take shape. Over the next few months, black citizenry in Forsyth was driven out by the thousands. The Daily Beast notes, their schools and churches firebombed, their lives threatened by night riders in hoods and cloaks. Acres of farmland were sold, or more often, simply seized by whites in land grabs. This is a space that didn't delineate white and colored spaces during the Jim Crow era because there were no black residents to marginalize. This rampant racism in Forsyth continued throughout the next several decades as the county stayed nearly all white for over 75 years, much into Marjorie's formative years and teens. In 1987, when Marjorie was in middle school, civil rights leader Hosea Williams and other activists marched twice in Forsyth in an effort to prove black people and white people can stand together. They were met with rocks, bottles, and mud thrown at them from members of the KKK and their supporters.
The marchers were clearly outnumbered by their antagonists who lined the road in a scene that looked like something out of America's darker past. Forsyth County's been all white for decades, and many residents say they want to keep it that way.
We haven't had none up here since the first of the century, and I don't think we've done okay without them. And I don't believe we need them up here now.
So was it the front row seat to Forsyth's rampant racism and growing up in an all-white community that explains Marjorie's penchant for incendiary, divisive rhetoric?
The most mistreated group of people in the United States today are white males. They are blamed for everything. They're the scapegoat. Everything bad in America is because of white men. That's what you're told. That's what the media wants to tell you. That's what the Democrats want to tell you. They want to blame everything on white men because white men are bad and white men are racist and white men want to hold everybody down. They just want to be successful themselves. You know, it's not fair. White men are not the bad guys, everybody. They're not. So I'm going to stand up for them and say that.
As Politico notes, in other videos, she directly compared Black Lives Matter activists to the neo-Nazis and Ku Klux Klan members who marched at a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, announcing them all as idiots. And Greene forcefully rejected the notion that there are racial disparities in the U.S. or that skin color affects the quality of one's life. Guess what? Slavery is over, she said. Black people have equal rights.
I know a ton of white people that are as lazy and sorry and probably worse than black people I know.
After purchasing her father's construction company in 2002 and opening a CrossFit gym, aka the place where people want to become trucks, Marjorie was bitten by a radioactive conspiracy bug. In 2017, she started publishing articles on a now defunct website called American Truth Seekers. In an effort to seek the truth, Marjorie penned an article titled Must Read: Democratic Party Involved with Child Sex, Satanism, and the Occult. In another article, Marjorie praised QAnon, the bonkers right-wing conspiracy theory that claims Donald Trump, the guy who was friends with Jeffrey Epstein, is leading a secret war against Satan-worshiping pedophiles.
Q is a patriot. We know that for sure.
This isn't where Marjorie's outlandish theories end. For the sake of both time and sanity, here are just a few of Marjorie Taylor Greene's past beliefs. She claims mass shootings like the one in Las Vegas, Parkland, and Sandy Hook were staged in an effort to introduce tighter gun control laws. She suggested a plane never crashed into the Pentagon on 9/11. She believes Obama is a Muslim. She suggested that Nancy Pelosi should be executed for treason. She suggested that in 2018, California's wildfires were caused by space lasers linked to a Jewish investment firm, and many more claims that seem insane at first glance and then still seem insane on second glance. So, With the bar to work in government currently on an elevator falling beneath the core of the earth, Marjorie decided her voice needed to be heard outside of the dark corners of the internet, like Facebook. So, she ran for a House seat and won. Marjorie represents Georgia's 14th congressional district, which has 700,000 residents, 85% of which are white. The New Yorker adds, 3/4 of the district's residents voted for Donald Trump in 2016, and more than 6,000 recently signed a petition to save a local statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest, the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. On Marjorie's first day in office, she wore a mask that read, "Trump won," even though he famously lost. On Biden's first full day in office, Marjorie filed articles of impeachment against the newly minted president for abuse of power, also known as taking office after being democratically elected by the people. But her past and also her present were catching up to her. On February 1st, House Democrats introduced a resolution to remove Marjorie from her 2 committee assignments, rendering her useless legislatively. Hell, even Mitch McConnell branded her affinity for conspiracy theories and loony lies a cancer for the Republican Party in our country, and that's coming from this guy.
Think of me as the Grim Reaper.
As controversy about her previous comments, like her support for QAnon and executing Nancy Pelosi grew, Marjorie took to the floor of the House claiming she's changed a lot since a few days ago.
I started finding misinformation, lies, things that were not true in these QAnon posts. I stopped believing it. You see, school shootings are absolutely real. I also want to tell you 9/11 absolutely happened. I remember that day crying all day long watching it on the news.
On February 4th, the House voted to strip Marjorie of her committee assignments, with 11 Republicans joining every Democrat that voted. Of course, nowadays, getting ousted in Washington for spewing conspiracy theories and threatening violence will only help in the long run, as evidenced by her continued support from her far-right donors. Now, a crowd of tinfoil hat-wearing supporters will not look at this as defeat, but rather the mainstream establishment trying to silence a truth-telling outlier. Trump may be gone, but the path he laid is well intact, and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene are taking it to Washington.
Hey, thanks for watching Who Is. Did you know we have a podcast now too? On Who Is, the podcast, I'll dive deep into the fascinating lives of the people who run things, whose decisions impact every aspect of our lives. How did they get where they are today? And knowing that, what might they do next? From politicians to the ultra-rich, to military contractors and monarchs and media moguls, I'll introduce you to the reporters and experts who know these real-life world molders best. Sharp-eyed observers and confidants who observe our subjects as they make the decisions that define our everyday lives. To see more, hit the link or search Who Is on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. And for more of the video series you know and love, be sure to check out the Snapchat versions and our series playlists on YouTube and Facebook.